All right, folks, check this out. So, we all know that MAGA is currently in civil war. They're arguing amongst themselves, they are divided. It's just been this whole thing, and it's all because Donald Trump may go to war with Iran. Some MAGA fans feel betrayed, lied to, because Donald Trump said he was the pro peace president, that there'd be no conflict under him. And then other MAGA fans are saying, well, it's Trump. We got to rock with him. He's got to do what he's got to do. So, the base is fractured. But here's the thing. A second war inside of the Trump administration is currently breaking out in public. This is not a hidden thing. It's happening all in the public eye. And this war is actually something that Donald Trump himself has chimed in on. So I'm going to show you his responses to this civil war in his administration in a minute and break down this story. But before I do so, I do want to give you the current state of MAGA with all these different conservatives coming out against Donald Trump. Alex Jones, who we all know is Looney Tunes, right? The other day on Twitter, he posted this: what you voted for, what you got. I hope this is not the case. It's a photo of Donald Trump and then an AI photo of Trump and George W. Bush combined, which is really a photo I did not need to see today, but nonetheless, he's basically trying to imply that Donald Trump is pro-war, that he lied to his base, that he's slowly becoming George Bush when it comes to Middle East intervention. And that's something that Candace Owens similarly said, kind of betraying the base, saying, quote, Donald Trump just completely fractured his base. This was the other day. And he did it for the very neocons who minted the Never Trump movement. Truly unbelievable. And that's in response to Donald Trump saying that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. We saw something similar as well with Dave Smith taking it a step further. He's a comedian, major Trump fan before the election. He's now calling for Donald Trump to be impeached and removed from office.
Take a look. To the negotiating table. It's like sitting after Pearl Harbor. Over now. The time for negotiations was before this. And so, yeah, Donald Trump looks, and man, I supported him this last year. I apologize for doing so. It was a bad calculation. At the time, it seemed like the right one. But he should be impeached and removed for this one. Wow. And not on some not on some ridiculous Nancy Pelosi. Of course, the Congress.
Wow, impeached and removed for this one regarding Trump's policy toward Iran. So this is happening as we speak. But as I mentioned, this smaller war is taking place, and it is pretty significant. It's happening in a significant wing of the government. So let's dive in here. The Trump-appointed director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency has ignited an intragovernmental civil war with a series of tweets calling for the resignation of the Federal Reserve Chair. Businessman Bill Pulte launched his campaign against Jerome Powell on Wednesday with a tirade calling on Powell to lower interest rates shortly before it was announced that the Federal Reserve would not be changing interest rates this month. He wrote, quote, because Donald Trump has crushed inflation, I don't know where he's getting that from, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell needs to lower interest rates today, and if not, Chairman Powell needs to resign immediately. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac can help so many more Americans if Chair Powell will just do his job and lower rates. So this is concerning for a number of reasons, but the main one is that the federal government, aka the Trump administration, the executive and people around him, are directly trying to influence the Fed. You know, the presidency and the Fed are independent for a reason. They're separate, so the president doesn't just control the money supply here in the United States and the entire economy, so politics can't interfere with it. And now the Trump administration is trying to make politics interfere with it. So this is another addition to the long list of examples of Donald Trump's dictatorial tendencies and the people around him engaging in dictatorial tendencies. It's very strange. Over the course of the next day, Pulte posted an additional 8 tweets calling on Powell to resign. Does anybody in the Trump administration do anything? I mean, these people are tweeting like 10 to 20 times a day. Do they do anything? In one, he used his position as chairman of government-backed mortgage financiers to point the finger at Powell's failure to lower interest rates that is hurting the housing market. In another, he claimed that Powell had no clue what he could do for the housing market and was, quote, not listening to the people who help lead. As a result, he needed to resign. In response to an article from The Hill about his crusade, Pulte explained his repeated calls for Powell to resign, quote, he is hurting Americans and hurting the mortgage market, which I am responsible for regulating. The latest conflict comes as the Republicans find themselves, of course, embroiled in another civil war over Donald Trump's handling of the Middle East. Pulte was eventually joined by Donald Trump, who posted on Truth Social, and I'll show you that right now. This is a post directly from the President of the United States. Again, the executive and the Federal Reserve is meant to remain separate, but Donald Trump doesn't care about any of that. He said, quote, too late. Powell is the worst, a real dummy who's costing America billions. Fannie Freddie regulator, Powell should cut rates or quit. That's people who work in the Federal Reserve. So Donald Trump joined as well. And Donald Trump didn't stop there. He followed up with a longer post writing on Thursday morning, and I have it here for you as well. Quote, "Too late. Jerome Powell is costing our country hundreds of billions of dollars. He is truly one of the dumbest and most destructive people in government, and the Fed board is complicit. Europe has had 10 cuts. We've had none. We should be 2.5 points lower and save billions on all of Biden's short-term debt. We have low inflation. Too late. An American disgrace." So Donald Trump himself, again, the president, is directly chiming in here, posting just relentless crap. And the funny thing about this story is that Donald Trump is the one who nominated Jerome Powell for the position of chairman for the Fed Reserve in 2017, breaking from tradition by naming a new appointee rather than reappointing the previous chair. So Jerome Powell is there because of Donald Trump. Let's just be abundantly clear about all of that. But it's just interesting that Donald Trump's entire argument is like, oh, we have low inflation so we can lower the interest rates. It's like, no, if Donald Trump wants low inflation, he should take the tariffs off. Jerome Powell has been abundantly clear that the only reason rates are still high is because of an expected raise in inflation because of Donald Trump's tariffs. He said at a press conference the other day that, like, look, somebody has to pay for the tariffs, and he's right. Somebody has to pay for the tariffs. It's going to be the American people at the end of the day. But Donald Trump is complaining about the interest rates, saying they need to be lower, they need to be lower. Meanwhile, he is the reason why inflation is still high and why inflation in 2025 is expected to actually go up. Now, Powell had responded negatively to Trump's proposed tariff scheme earlier this year, cautioning that it could lead to higher inflation and slower growth, which the Fed is now projecting. Despite these threats, according to the New York Times by Donald Trump, the president is aware that attempting to remove Powell from his position could further damage an already volatile market. While Federal Reserve chairs are nominated by the president, as Powell was in 2017, the question of whether they can be removed by the president is a legally complex and politically fraught one. Trump firing Powell could be seen as compromising the political independence of the Federal Reserve. And they're right. Donald Trump trying to fire the chair of the Federal Reserve would be disastrous, not only politically and legally, because it's like, does Donald Trump even have the power to do that? But the markets, the economy, which have already crumbled under Donald Trump and are projecting slower growth under Donald Trump, they would react terribly. I mean, the president doing that would cause utter chaos around the country, and it would be all Donald Trump's fault. So this is all happening in real time. This smaller civil war taking place inside the Trump administration is happening right now. And it's not getting as much coverage, obviously, because, the civil war over Iran has really broken out among the MAGA base. They are not happy at what Donald Trump is doing. But nonetheless, it's still significant because we're talking about the Federal Reserve. We're talking about the American economy here, of which the Trump administration is attacking the Fed. The Fed is saying we're not going to bow to the pressure. And I hope they don't. I hope they just don't start cutting rates. The interest rates, which so far they've been pretty good on this. I hope they don't start cutting interest rates just because Donald Trump asked them to, because it makes his economy look better and he gets a higher approval rating or whatever it might be. Because still, inflation in the United States is very high. It is very high. And Donald Trump has made it higher, and the projection is not good in the future. So anyway, I will leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I just had to bring this story to you. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. It goes an incredibly long way. Drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about this story. And as I always say, I greatly appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.